Okay, good morning. Welcome Unit 1 for the We the People National Invitational Challenge. I'm Christine Hull and I will be your facilitator today. In a moment, I will have the judges introduce themselves, followed by the students, and then we will begin the hearing. Students will deliver a 4-minute prepared speech, followed by 6 minutes of judge questions. My microphone will be muted during the hearing and I will hold up 1 minute and time signs. We ask that all visitors, guests, and teachers please keep their microphones muted and their cameras off so the focus is on the hardworking students. I suggest that you use gallery view rather than speaker view, and at the conclusion of this hearing, judges will give brief feedback to teams and then we will conclude. Judges, the floor is yours.
Hello, good morning. I'll introduce myself first and then we'll turn to the other judges, and then I'd like for you to introduce yourselves and your teachers. So my name is Glypta Sangrider-Jones. I'm from the University of Louisville's McConnell Center. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky, and I'm glad that we can meet virtually. And our co-judges are?
My name is Alan Brodman. Oh, sorry, Tim.
Go ahead, Alan.
Okay, my name is Alan Brodman. I'm a teacher in East Brunswick, New Jersey. And I bring teams to nationals. In fact, my students were here last weekend doing what you're doing right now. So looking forward to hearing from you guys.
I'm Tim Moore from the Center for the Study of the American Constitution at the University of Wisconsin, and it is fantastic to be with you. You guys are?
Hi, I'm Hazel Hart, and I'm in 8th grade.
Hi, I'm Katie Schloss, and I'm also in 8th grade.
Hi, I'm Connor Wilhoit, and I'm also in 8th grade. And these are our teachers, Mike Wozlinski and Susan Cleveland.
Great to have everyone here. Thank you all for coming out. So I will now read the question. We're Unit 1, and I'll read the question, and then you may begin. Rights, or natural rights, and republicanism, classical republicanism, may be said to be twin pillars of the American political tradition. It is hard for us at first to credit any suggestion that there may be some tension or problem in their coexistence. Do you agree or disagree with the author? Why or why not? What might be the tensions between these two principles? How might they reinforce one another? How successful has the Constitution been in reconciling those tensions? What evidence supports your position? And lastly, where does a third R, responsibilities, fit into our political tradition? You may now begin.
True republicanism is the sovereignty of the people. There are natural and imprescriptible rights which an entire nation has no right to violate. Marquis de Lafayette. As a panel, we agree with Thomas Pangle that at first it is difficult to suggest that there may be some tension between the principles of natural rights and classical republicanism. Both principles are represented extensively and fairly equally in the Declaration of Independence.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The pursuit of happiness as a substitute for Locke's property is done in difference to classical republicanism. Happiness can involve the acquisition of property, which is a natural right but not an end in itself. The pursuit of happiness requires engagement with others and opportunities and improves everybody's quality of life. This is representative of the homogeneous communities described by Aristotle.
Other places in the Declaration where these principles exist include prudence in making decisions, a classical republican tenet which can be seen in either Plato's vision of a philosopher king or Aristotle's statesman, securing rights through consent. Hobbes stated that humans leave the state of nature to be governed by consent. Finally, respecting the opinions of mankind and justifying the revolutions against the established society, principles that Sarah described in treatises and speeches. As we try to balance individual rights and common good, we can see these ideas come into conflict.
Banning travel to certain locations or quarantining citizens who have been to areas where they may have come into contact with infectious diseases is an example of this tension. We are currently seeing a tension between a person's right to travel freely and the protection of humankind against a disease outbreak with the global threat of coronavirus. Another example is death with dignity laws, which allow a qualified terminally ill adult to determine their own mortality and request and receive a prescription medication to hasten their death. As of May 2020, age and dying statutes are in effect in some states.
Other instances of the two principles clashing include mandatory retirement ages, vaccination requirements, healthcare penalties for obesity and smoking, and CCTV or surveillance cameras in public spaces. While there is tension, the Constitution has been quite successful in reconciling the tensions between natural rights and classical republicanism by both enumerating power and defining rights. The Articles of the Constitution generally enumerate limits and checks on power.
Examples include the emoluments clauses and term age limits. These are all products of classical republicanism. While the Articles of the Constitution contain important limitations on power, the Bill of Rights defines the shared rights of individuals who consent to be governed, representing natural rights. A few examples include freedom of expression and religion, due process, and the right to a speedy trial.
The tenets of natural rights in classical republicanism are supported by a third tenet, responsibilities. While the Constitution has no explicit list of responsibilities, it does presume many civil duties to ensure that both natural rights and the common good are protected. For example, the Constitution itself creates responsibility for all citizens to obey the law. The Constitution sets rules for treason against the United States, presuming the responsibility of loyalty to the United States. The Constitution provides the right to trial by an impartial jury, creating a responsibility to serve as an impartial juror when called.
The Constitution provides for an army and a navy, creating the responsibility to serve in the armed forces when called. The Constitution contains many amendments that expanded the right to vote. Now, with few exceptions, all persons 18 or older can vote in any public election. It is a responsibility then for citizens to vote. As JFK stated, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. It is the responsibility of citizens and the government to protect natural rights while also upholding the tenet of classical republicanism.
We are now open for questions.
All right. Well, let me pose maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a wacky idea. I think we should have, in addition to a Bill of Rights, I think we should have in our Constitution a Bill of Responsibilities. What do you think of that idea?
I agree with that idea. I believe that many citizens today do not abuse their responsibilities as much as they should, such as an example for today, people do have the right to vote, but not many people do vote.
I agree with my panel mate. I agree with my panel mate. I think that another thing that we could have aside from the Bill of Rights would also be respect, because it's important to respect each other's rights along with the government's rights and people that we see every day and the people in our country.
Adding on to my panel mate, I think that respect could be a fourth responsibility, and I also think that it could be kind of a fourth R that we could use. I think that you have to have respect for the common good, especially in a republic, and I think that could be something that we could add on to our Constitution.
Okay, should we punish people if they don't do the Bill of Responsibilities?
I believe that people should have the right to choose. For example, as I said before, I think people should have the right to choose to vote, but we should really strongly encourage these responsibilities, maybe by adding a certain incentive, such as a small tax cut.
Thank you.
Okay. So let me kind of pull back a bit and look at this whole concept here. The question asks us about this issue of natural rights and classical republicanism and the tension between them. Today, do you think our system is more focused on natural rights or on classical republicanism? And as a second aspect of the question, is that balance a good thing, a good idea?
In my opinion, I think that the government is more centered on natural rights today, because I think that there are many rights in the amendments and in the Bill of Rights, and I think that those are rights that we have valued for a really, really long time, and they still have so much value today.
I agree with in some parts with my panel mate, but I also believe that, especially today, the government is more centered about classical republicanism, because currently people do have the right to travel freely, but they are giving up that right for the common good to help protect others from the coronavirus.
I agree with my panel mate. I think that it is more focused on classical republicanism right now because of the stay-at-home order. And like he said, they're giving up their personal rights for the common good.
Okay.
All right, I'll ask a question about just sort of the very nature of classical republicanism. So sort of that classic thought, right, that more ancient thought was that it really only works in small homogeneous communities. But it sounds like you're saying in some instances it does work today, but, or does it? So I think my question is, does it only work in small homogeneous communities? And why or why not?
I believe that a republic does work better in a small community, mostly because it's easier to help the common good if it's a smaller population. But I do believe that you can still have a republic with a bigger population. It's just not as functional as a small community would be.
I agree with my panel mate, and as the example we said before with the stay-at-home order, I think that we are showing kind of a classical republicanism like kind of right now, because we are giving up our own rights for the common good and staying at home to keep everyone safe.
I also agree with my panel mates. I think that although classical republicanism and a republic might work better in a smaller community, I think that right now we have to use civic virtue and we have to put our interests aside for the common good of our communities to help prevent a future pandemic and to stop the pandemic that's happening right now.
Can you give me an example of where maybe there are some small uniform communities out there?
Sure.
I believe. Oh, sorry.
Go
Right
ahead,
now,
Connor.
okay. Right now, I believe that a small community right now is that some people are protesting against coronavirus, and they're kind of, I don't know, they almost create like they're protesting against it, and I think it's kind of like a small community. They're like have similar beliefs.
Are there other?
I agree. Oh, sorry.
Keep going.
I agree with my panel mate that there are some small communities, and like he was saying, I think that beliefs can make a community, and I think that there are groups that do have smaller communities that this could work better in because of beliefs or like, you know, having the same ideas as each other.
Go.
Okay.
Right on time. So at this point, we're going to provide some quick feedback to you all. Does anyone want to jump in, Alan or Tim first?
Okay, I'll start. I thought your opening statement, I thought you did a very nice job with linking in the classical and natural rights ideas into the statement, all told. I thought that that you had a number of really good examples that you laid out in that opening statement. And I thought that was really very good to show us the connections that you were talking about. And I thought on the responses, I thought you did a good job. I think I would have liked to have seen kind of a broader set of examples. I think we kept going back to some of the pieces that you'd utilized before. And while some of them really were good applications, if we could take that next step and maybe kind of go to some second and third level examples, that would have been really good. But on the whole, I thought, a nice job, guys. Very nice.
You know, you guys did something really cool. And you reminded me that there are bits and pieces of the Declaration that are classically Republican. The word prudence doesn't appear there, but there is some prudence in the text. Long train of abuses, a decent respect for mankind. So, you know, that's pretty cool. And then you also read in Aristotle. The idea of happiness is a collective thing, not necessarily just an individual thing. So I thought your opening presentation, and then, you mentioned mandatory retirement vaccinations. I mean, your use of evidence in your opening statement was really remarkable. But then conceptually, you did. I mean, most people look at the Declaration as a Lockean document, but you slowed me down. That's fantastic that you did that. I really appreciated that. I think I would have liked a few more details in a couple of the follow-ups. But I think that would have been helpful to sort out. Okay, I mean, you got close to it. Well, let's tax incentivize on this issue of requiring the Bill of Responsibilities. I thought you could have done a bit better on identifying some small homogeneous communities, and maybe people, maybe Amish people, or maybe your school is a small homogeneous community. I don't know, but just a few more details of supporting evidence. But man, oh man, that your opening, you really kind of poked me to think about the Declaration in a different way rather than just a Lockean document. So I appreciated that tremendously. Thank you.
I definitely agree. Sorry, I think there was a lot of feedback there. Definitely agree that your ability to identify in the text in your opening statements, and then your references throughout the death with dignity law, vaccinations, again, taking just current events and making them relevant to your points was very well done. I really also appreciated the suggestion that you might have a fourth R, respect, which is an interesting idea, and perhaps would invite a larger conversation as to whether or not that may or may not work out in practice. But I appreciate the suggestion that you brought out there, and agree that the examples just continue to think about how they might work. Again, the tax incentive is an interesting way to maybe get there. So at least I really appreciated that you're thinking about the complications in the in this particular conversation. But at the end of the day, this is a really philosophical kind of question, right? And so your ability to really apply and connect to real world examples was really well done. So I really appreciated the effort and the application that you all made in your presentation. So thank you for all of your hard work. Good luck as you move forward, and really enjoyed being here with you today.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, guys.